this. Everyone knew that the asset was over 50 years old, and at some stage in the future it would need to be replaced. And in fact for 2015 we said that, hey, that we think we'll hold on a little bit longer to do the business case before we make a decision to engage on the replacement. However, with my decision to close the theatre, that never came to a head.
Okay, thank you. So back to my question.
Sorry about that, by the way.
No, it's fine. Do we have in any staff's mind a point at which this becomes a real liability that we can't do anything with? Because, you know, I appreciate the take it now, let's get on with it sort of stuff, but we're getting on with a hell of a lot of stuff very, very quickly at the moment.
Yes, I mean, obviously the building has been closed for almost 2 years now. In the options that we put forward for the consultation, we did signal that our estimate was if you wanted to demolish the unsafe parts of the building and build new walls to shore up the safe parts, you know, you're looking at around 1.2 million, you know, and you'd end up with to be blunt, an awkward configuration of rooms. Okay. As a result of that. So there's the cost there, you know, around 1.2 million. We also signalled under option 3, if it was to be reinstated for community use at whatever level, in its current form, or roughly its current form, without all the bells and whistles of a fully fledged proscenium arch theatre, it could be anything between $5.7 and $12 million. So I guess the question is, when you talk about $5.7 and $12 million for a community theatre that would be operating maybe on a similar vein to Clarence Street Theatre, for example, only more seats, is that then that's the question you'd have to say, is that a viable option? Right. That's a lot of money.
Yeah, okay. And just finally, the hottery, where's that at the moment?
The hottery has been removed from the building. As you're aware, we had concerns over its security and insurability and the building in its current condition, so it has been, the panels have been removed, they've been crated up and put into specially built crates, and they are now in a secure storage here in Hamilton in an environment controlled room.
Great, thank you. That's all for me. Dave.
I'm glad to see clarified that when we heard about the earthquake risk, because I think the answer we received before was quite misleading, and I'll talk about that more in the debate. But I noticed that there are a number of community organisations, non-creative sector, if you can loosely call that have put in submissions. So I want to know why the point C, why the staff have chosen just to say to enter discussions with the creative sector and not the wider community sector, given especially that the Founders Theatre is being replaced by the regional theatre.
I think you've raised a very good point, Councillor McPherson, and that should be reworded.
So I was either going to do an amendment or at least suggest for it being creative and community sectors.
Yeah, happy for that change to happen.
Yes. Who's the seconder?
Who's moved it?
Gary, are you happy with that change?
Yeah, just in C.
Yep. So maybe if you could work, Dave, with the General Manager now just to get that wording changed.
Yeah, I think it's been done, Councillor McPherson.
Okay.
And community sectors.
Yeah, and then below just to put with them rather than with the creative sector. And
we could just take the word creative out.
Yeah. Yep. That's better. The creation of a community
community hub.
Creative / community hub, yeah.
Okay.
I just think that reflects the submissions more broadly. And
correct.
Any more questions?
No, thanks.
Councillor Paula.
Stay away from the keyboard. She's owning the keyboard.
Thank you, Mayor Andrew. Just one short one because the rest have been answered. Oh, two short ones actually. If we open it up to a discussion with the community creative sector, that means that people who didn't foresee the opportunity at the time, like Kote Pacifica, who were more focused on Hinimoa at that time for a variety of reasons, not going to go into it, but they'd be able to come and propose a business opportunity as well.
Oh, look, yes, if we, I mean, at the end of the day, we need to signal to the people who have come through that, yes, there is an appetite from council to have further discussion, and a signal from them so that they know whether they should be investing more money and time and energy into actually preparing their own proper business case, and most importantly, establishing how will they raise the money to do what they need to do, and can they raise it. And few have signalled, as you know, as you will have read, that they have thoughts on how to raise money. But if any other parties are out there that haven't been a part of it, they're more than welcome to come into the fray, and we'll communicate accordingly.
Some of whom might have funding, but need a venue.
There's no doubt that this process, and I'm not involved in the community occupancy activity, but I understand, there's other issues that are going on with community hub development for other sites in the city. So this really needs to be wrapped up as part and parcel of that.
And so it'd be best to do this as a strategic look at all the community needs. And last question, I was just a little bit uncertain about the wording of E, because we are just a timing thing. You've got it in consideration of the concept planning for new, but we don't know what the outcome of anything that we're proposing in the LTP is until we get through the hearings and we hear what people want to say. So the wording of that should be somewhat around, should the new Waikato Regional Theatre go ahead. There's a timing issue there, because, we wouldn't want to make a decision or even get people's hopes up, really, around one thing.
Look, I guess I was taking that as being implicit in the consideration of the appropriate timing for that.
Oh, I think
but if you wanted to be more
I think
specific,
it could be clearer. But that's my point of view. Thank you.
Councillor Robb.
Yeah, thank you. Just to follow on from, I think, Dave's question about C and how that would work with a regional theatre, the revamped, if this proposal goes ahead. Are we generally, once we get the regional theatre and if we redo the Founders Theatre, will we be over-theatred for a city our size in terms of, the mix and match that we have with Gallagher, with Meteor, with Clarence Street, and could we end up with everyone competing with everyone else?
in my opinion, in my personal opinion, the answer to that question is yes. And also, in my personal opinion, I would be fearful that it would open the doors for more groups to be on a tough, having to survive and operate on a tough subsistence basis, which is the current status for theatre, community theatre groups as it is. It's a hard world out there for them, and to add yet another group, another facility, with support from us in some way, it just makes it
be undercutting each other to get.
And we also have to be, considerate of the fact that if we invest a significant amount of money in a brand new community theatre for the city and region, that we don't want to take away from that either.
Yep. Fair enough. In terms of the feedback that you've had, has the creative sector indicated any levels of financial support that they might bring to the table in terms of helping council fund the revamp?
No, not specifically, other than the normal looking for different grants from different sources, whether it be council, philanthropic. Perhaps there is one. From memory, there's one proposal there from the Arise Church, as I indicated before, who indicated that they would finance refurbishment and everything else, but they would need tenure on the property, and they've specifically said by way of a 99-year lease.
Okay. And if we went ahead with this and went to consultation, who do you have in mind who might facilitate the discussion, given that Creative Waikato have indicated that they would be unlikely to participate in that facilitation?
Well, it's a broader community application, or a broader community opportunity. So not just in the creative space. And I haven't had the opportunity to discuss that with Lance Vivort at this stage in terms of how to progress that, bearing in mind the work that his group already has underway on this front.
Yep. So are there individuals out there who could do that? Perhaps that's a better question of Andy.
I'm not sure if it requires an independent facilitation.
Okay,
I'm
okay.
not sure on that. Wouldn't answer that.
Okay, all right, thank you.
Deputy Mayor Martin.
Can you scroll? I just want to have a look at that amendment. I just want to ask a question of the move of the amendment. Approved for no, that's fine. Community hub, that's covered. Can we scroll back down to the original motion? Why would we leave E as a D and E seems a problem, because surely you don't authorise any member of staff to have a free hand to tick the box with the demolition of the founders until such time as the construction crews are literally building the Hamilton Theatre and all the contracts are signed and all of that.
Look, just in response as I answered before,
Yeah.
I took that as an assumption, you know, in terms of
Well,
consideration
yeah,
of the
but
regional theatre.
assumptions, we all make assumptions. I'm on a board where assumptions were made, but hasn't ended too well.
If you wish the wording to be amended, that's fine.
I'd just like to, you know, I'd just like to suggest that. The other question is just structurally here in terms of, you know, you're saying what bits can you can't, you're saying keep the foyer and the original bits without sort of, because it's connected to the auditorium?
The very concerning bits are the State House, the buildings that, or the parts of the building, change rooms to the sides are sort of okay. Then you have the auditorium itself as a concern, which is separate again, adjoining, and the wall of the auditorium that bounds the auditorium and the reception area out the front is a concern. So if, for example, you remove the auditorium, then you have to put a wall up to save what's left of the reception. And likewise for those other rooms at the back of the house for the theatre, the stage house. So that's why I argue it's an awkward composition.
Yeah, but you've given a really broad range of cost of keep, and is that really the cost of the keep? It depends what you keep, is it?
Yeah, it depends what option you decide to
So
choose.
roughly, just give me an idea that, you know, if the cheapest option of keep, what would that look like?
Well, as we've suggested in the consultation, around 1.2 million in terms of the building works.
How much?
1.2 million for the building works. But I would stress that you would end up with a very awkward set of spaces, and you'd probably ask the question, are you better to demolish fully and build a cheaper purpose-built community building so that it's more functional? Because otherwise you're going to have used building spaces that are highly compromised in their layout and format.
Given the heritage, and I know it's not heritage listed, but it is a heritage building, as far as this city is concerned, how have you been cognisant of that?
Yes, we have.
Yeah. Just where and I'm just exploring all ideas. You know, when the Founders was built, we were, I think, 45,000, 60,000 max. Pretty big achievement at the time. We're now, what is it, 166, 65,000. We're predicting just in urban Hamilton alone to be towards 200, wider region of 250, 300. We talk about a mothball. What would you need? I mean, sometimes other outfits. Euphrates House is a good example, but you know, tragically lost it. I'm not necessarily comparing the two, but I'm trying to tease out here. What is the cost to this council of a keep for now? What's the minimum annual cost, you said, to keep in reasonable condition? It's just I'm wanting to have some idea.
Look, I just checked with Richard Sutherland, and we'd have to get the figures for you. We don't have it here, but he's suggesting it could be up to around 200,000, and that would include depreciation in terms of holding it. But Look, I'd need to check that figure in terms of what it would cost.
I think that's quite relevant, because stating the obvious, as I've discovered with the Euphrates House, when it's gone, it's gone. No one thanks the Catholic Church for destroying it, by the way, in my view, with respect to the low diocese, my good friend the diocese. No one there's not been an outpouring of thank you and gratitude for what's happened at Euphrates House. I don't think there'd be an outpouring of gratitude for founders, actually, given the unique emotional attachment a lot of people have. And I'm not suggesting you keep it forever, but I think it would be, because obviously implicit in the amendment is not to bring the wrecking ball in at a certain time. Implicit in the amendment is us wanting more time to really turn this one over, and I'm just trying to think, what is the real cost of, if you like, delaying a decision? Yeah, and when could you bring that information back?
We need that information before we make a decision today, so
Yeah,
I'll get the Chief Executive to work on it.
We can
Yeah,
get that
and I'm
back.
not wanting to muck you about,
No,
honestly,
just
but
not
I think it's
comfortable with that.
relevant information.
200,000.
We could get that back to you today. Well, early this afternoon.
Well, Rich is working on it now, so we need to know now.
Email a while back with those costs in it. I'm trying to find that email.
Yeah, okay.
And it's just so you can make,
cool.
there's an informed decision, whatever choices you're making.
If I may, Mayor Andrew, irrespective of that, I mean, we could still resolve simply for there to be no decision on demolition until such a time as the community options have been worked through and we come back to council with the outcome of that.
Well,
There's been Mayor Andrews made a change to the motion.
Yeah, I think Deputy Mayor's question was very good, and Deputy Mayor, if you have a look at E up here and seconder of the motion, but I do believe that we do need to have the new theatre locked and loaded before we finally put a bulldozer through. Sure.
Thank you. Is it imperative that we make this decision today? Can we lie it on the table pending getting a little bit of clarity around those very good questions that have been raised today? I know you would have
Councillor
liked...
Paula, I'll just pass it on to the Democracy Manager to answer your question.
If the process question is in relation to standing orders, then I can answer, and that is to say that certainly someone can put a procedural motion to let the matter lie on the table until a specified time, until later in the meeting, whichever way you choose.
So my question was probably more at a political, strategic level, Mayor Andrew or Chief Executive Sean, one of you to answer. Do we need to make this? We've got to get this right. Do we need to make this decision today? Is it that important that it's done today, or is it important that we get it all together as we want it and make a more informed decision? There's been a lot of good questions raised. I'm just asking that. Does it have to be done today?
No, look, it could be,
Could it be the first
could choose-
council meeting of the new year?
Yeah, we'd probably need more time, I think, if you want us to do the community work. But we had this date set from a previous paper to come back with a outcome of consultation and a deliberate or a recommendation on where to next in demolition for the theatre. But you could receive this paper but not act on it, or ask us not to accept any of the recommendations and ask us to come back with fuller detail on the business proposals for the community submitters. So it's whatever suits you.
Yeah, no, I'm in favour of your amendment as it is at the moment. I'm just wondering, it just seems to have come to our table today, right in the middle of some very meaty LTP meetings, by the way. But if there is time, notwithstanding the questions that Mark raised around, what happens to the longer it stands idle, but it stood idle for quite some time now. So a couple of months is neither going to be neither here nor there, right?
Excuse me, General Manager, this is tied up with the 10-year plan. We've spent $25 million yesterday on a new theatre. This is a $20 million fix, and we have been talking about this now for a year at least. This isn't new to the table, and you can put a procedural motion at any time that you choose, or you can go with the amendment. So you do have choices.
Yes, I agree with that. A lot of while we've been talking, point of correction, that while we've been talking about it for a year, we've only recently got these reports, very, very recently, in days ago, got all the submissions.
But this is intricately tied with the 10-year plan. And that's
Okay, well,
why it's here in
that's
this
fine.
report today.
I'll probably support the amendment. Thank you.
So we'll break for a cup of tea while the Chief Executive finds the question that both Mark and the Deputy Mayor asked. So we'll be back at 25 to. Thank you. Okay, 27 minutes to.